I consider Bell to be Larson's toughest competition. The other name here might be the most sneaky. I believe there are 4 true contenders to Kyle Larson, and they all happen to be in the top 7 in points.
Because they're so unique, they could be something huge.
Right.
You just gotta use them. You just gotta use them.
Welcome to Left Turns, Right Hooks. It's episode number 20. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Dan Lindsay. Last week, we talked about Kyle Larson's dominance recently in NASCAR. This week, I break down his competition. It's not a shoo-in for Larson or even All-Star race winner Christopher Bell to win the championship when it's all said and done. We've got 14 regular season races left before the playoffs hit, and tons can happen in the next 3+ months. On the wrestling side this week, friend of the podcast, Chris Yates, joins us once again. We talk Liv Morgan, Alexa Bliss, and the Wyatt Sicks. I can't wait to share his thoughts on those topics a little bit later. All right, before we get into Kyle Larson's contenders, I saw on the NASCAR NBC Facebook page that no driver has won the championship when he was leading the points standings at the All-Star break. Now, we've had some close calls. A few drivers have made the top 4, the championship 4. Kevin Harvick back in 2015, Kyle Busch in 2018, Denny Hamlin in 2021, and Chase Elliott in 2022. So maybe the third time is a charm for Kyle Larson. He made the round of 12 in 2017 when he was leading the points that year at the All-Star break. And last year he was leading the points at the All-Star break, but didn't make it past the round of 8. So to recap the season winners so far this season, we saw Bell dominate weeks 2 through 4 for his 3 wins this season, while Denny Hamlin netted his 2 wins at Martinsville and Darlington. Lately, it's been Larson's time to dominate, spreading out his 3 wins at Homestead, Bristol, and Kansas. So does this mean someone else is next for multiple wins, or do we already have our top 3 contenders for the championship? Just about at the halfway point of the regular season, so by no means is it time to hand Larson, or any driver for that matter, the championship trophy. With the current playoff system, you essentially just have to qualify for the playoffs and survive each round to be in position to win the final race, despite other results you had in the regular season. See Logano, Joey in 2024. Now, Larson and Bell both have a big advantage so far this season with their wins, but I say it's not just those 2 or even those 3 if you want to throw in Denny Hamlin. So I compiled a list of drivers that we should expect more noise from the rest of the regular season to keep Larson and Bell and Hamlin on their heels. And not that I wish this on him, but if Larson even gets slightly delayed at the Indy 500, that could severely impact his chances of starting the Coke 600. NASCAR did away with the waiver rule this offseason, and if Larson doesn't start the Coke 600, that could essentially ruin his championship hopes. But assuming that doesn't happen to Larson, here are my list of drivers I expect to give Larson a run for his money. First, let's start with his stable of teammates. I have all of them as some type of contendership, but in the following order: William Byron, Chase Elliott, then Alex Bowman. When we look at the average finish position compared to Larson, William Byron is the next closest driver, and it's extremely close. No DNFs for Byron compared to Larson's 1, but Larson has more top 10s, giving him the slight edge over Byron. William also has a win on the season and should be primed for more. Now, Chase Elliott keeps finding ways to get solid finishes each and every race, it seems. From this graphic, his average finishing position is 4th best among all drivers and 3rd best among Hendrick drivers. Chase also has 0 DNFs, but just 6 top 10s and only 3 top 5s, but he hasn't finished outside of the top 20 all season. Consistency is never a bad thing, but if he can't get any wins soon, he might be left in the dust pretty quickly. Now, Alex Bowman, well, he's managed to notch 2 top 10s in the last 3 points races, but before that, he had 3 straight finishes outside of the top 20. Bowman is definitely running better than he's happening to finish, so he's still in that group of contenders and still further notice, just not in the elite company of contenders. Outside of the Hendrick camp, for the rest of the contenders, I looked at drivers that were either in the top 15 in average finishing position or top 15 in average running position. Chase Elliott, William Byron, they both fell in both of those categories. And just 2 other drivers hit above both those marks as well. Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick. Christopher Bell we know about. 3 wins early. He has finished in the top 10 in 5 of 6 races since his 29th place finish at Homestead, and he's finished at least 12th or better in all but 3 races this season. Bell has competed well at every level he's raced at, and we expect nothing less at this point for him. I consider Bell personally to be Larson's toughest competition. The other name here might be the most sneaky, Tyler Reddick. He lines right up with Byron on holding the line around a top 10 average running position and slides in just above the top 15 line and average finishing position. Reddick has just 4 top 10s and 3 top 5s, and he's finished outside of the top 20 just twice. And that was the 21st at Texas and the 24th at Las Vegas. And thanks to another nifty graphic from Daniel Cespedes, when we look at average percentage of laps run, Reddick has completed over 20% of his laps run in the top 5, just one of 11 drivers to do so. He's also just one of 6 drivers to have completed 50% laps run on average in their top 10, and he leads all drivers in laps completed in the top 20 at over 90%. The next 3 drivers in the top 20 barely crossed the 80% threshold. So if that isn't consistency, I'm not sure what is. Expect him to make more noise as the regular season rolls on. So to sum up, I believe there are 4 true contenders to Kyle Larson: William Byron, Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, and Tyler Reddick. And they all happen to be in the top 7 in points. If it wasn't for 4 DNFs, I would have Blaney in this group too, but he belongs in the next tier. Same for Denny Hamlin. He's hovering around that top 15 mark in average finishing position, but not quite there despite 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and 6 top 10s. His 2 DNFs are what knock him into that next tier for now. The next tier are what I would like to call the pretending to be contenders. Drivers that made the top 15 in average running position or average finishing position, but not both. The 5 that are currently top 15 in average running position, but not average finishing position, are Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, and the Penske stable, Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, and Ryan Blaney. Alex Bowman, we already talked about him, but he also falls in this category. Josh Berry, he is teetering on the edge for this group for what it's worth, but he just misses out on the inclusion of this pretending to be contenders group. The drivers that made the top 15 in average finishing position, but not quite the top 15 in average running position, it's just one person, Ross Chastain. We've sang his praises before and will again this week. He's doing a wonderful job considering he's not in top-tier equipment. He's finding the right spots at the right time to pull off good finishes. He's currently 11th in points, has just 1 DNF, and has only finished outside of the top 20 twice. And last but not least, I've got a list of 8 dark horse contenders. Each of these drivers are in the top 20 of average running position, as well as the top 20 of average finishing position that I haven't mentioned yet. And so if there are no winners that are currently below 20th in points, I'm looking at you, AJ Allmendinger, Michael McDowell, Ty Dillon, Ty Gibbs, SVG, and Brad Keselowski, guys that could probably win, but they're low in points, so we're just not sure to think of them. If there's no winners out of that group, I feel like at least 2, if not 3 of these 8 dark horse contenders could probably points race their way in, but a win would help them that much more. Now, Josh Berry's in this group, but he already has a win. Other guys in this group include Chase Briscoe, Ryan Preece, Carson Hocevar, Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse, Kyle Busch, and Chris Buescher. Now, Ricky Stenhouse, well, he doesn't have a great average running position, but he does have a top 20 average finishing position, so that's why I'm including here. He has kind of just brought it along the last few weeks, just good finish after good finish, kind of like Ross Chastain, just not quite as good as Ross Chastain's finishes, but I do need to include Ricky Stenhouse in this group, despite not quite hitting the full metrics I wanted to hit here. Fun fact about all of these drivers, all but one have a top 5 finish this season. The lone person not having a top 5 is Austin Dillon. I'm including him though in this list though because I'm going to include Kyle Busch. I need to include his RCR teammate, Austin Dillon. Zane Smith actually qualifies for this category, but I just don't feel like the sophomore front row motorsports driver is really there. He has just 1 top 10 So I just can't quite put them in this group as we near the halfway point. So as we get ready for the longest race of the season, and I'm actually going to be there, we have at least 4 and maybe as many as 9 contenders that could knock Larson off of his pedestal. Throw in 8 dark horse candidates, and the second half of the season should be electric. So to wrap up the NASCAR for this week, I've got to make my pick for the Coke 600. I've seen some stuff on first-time winners getting their first win around their 100th start and their first win being the Coke 600. Ty Gibbs is that name being thrown around right now. Ryan Preece looking for his first win. He's nearing start 200 and still looking for his career win. But Coke 600, first-time winners, it has happened a few times, but we haven't had that first-time winner since 2017 when it was Austin Dillon. Lately, the championship contenders usually shine at the Charlotte race. Tyler Reddick is winless in 6 tries here, but has the best average finish among all active drivers. Hamlin and Logano are next in that average finish, and they've raced here at least 20 times. I'm going to stay in the Chevy camp, though, but not the Hendrick camp. Instead, I'm going to lean on Richard Childress Racing. In 3 next-gen races here, Kyle Busch is just a tick off of Tyler Reddick for average finish. Busch needs a win badly, and what a better race to win than the longest race of the season. So that's my pick, Kyle Busch for the Coke 600. All right, the track is ran, so let's go run the ropes. We've talked about Larson's biggest competitors, so it's time to figure out some of the competition for some specific WWE superstars. I've got a bunch of questions for returning guest Chris Yates, so let's welcome him in. Chris, thank you so much for returning on the podcast again this week. It's great to have you back. Can't wait to dig into some of these topics with you today. Really, just really looking forward to some of the stuff that we have on the docket for today. So, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back, man.
And for anybody watching, we are actually recording this before the May 19th edition of Raw. So we're talking about a couple of things that could maybe be affected by the time Raw hits the air. So anything that happens on Raw may be a little off of what we talk about here, but we're kind of operating under the assumption that either certain people might not be back yet on the newest edition of Raw, or we're just hoping that nothing major happens here with some of the questions we're going to have here. Because one of the big things Chris and I are going to talk about is Liv Morgan. Chris, you've shared with me, your fandom for her. So that's why I kind of want to preface that. Anybody watching, it's like this is recorded before May 19th Raw, but she's rumored to be back at some point. That's cool. She actually got to go shoot a movie for a little bit. Must be. I got to imagine it's a small role. She's already done shooting it, but that's just cool. So. Let's start with Liv Morgan there. What brought you into the fandom for Liv Morgan?
Yeah, man. So I loved Liv since her days in like NXT. If anyone remembers like Enzo and Big Cass and her and stuff, like I'm talking all the way back then. Like I always have been a fan of her. Even when she was in, if anyone really remembers, the Riot Squad back in the day, that too.
Mm-hmm.
But like at that time, I was definitely more of like an Alexa Bliss fan than her in terms of like women's wrestlers, like Charlotte and all that. I don't think it was until, funny enough, around her cameo in Chucky this is what got me into Liv. Like that's what really slingshot me. She's already like in my top 5 favorite, but when she made that cameo, I'm like, she might just be my favorite right now. Like of all time. I really like Liv, and then her stuff with Dom and all that, like, the Rhea storyline could have been played out a little bit, but she was the best part about that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
She carried it. It's just Rhea seems to get a lot of flowers for it, but I'm like, Liv was the one. She was the main girl for that. And it's a shame what happened, this past Mania, because I think she really deserved to get her flowers. And I think it will happen. It just takes time.
Yeah. No, I mean, she was I know she's gotten a lot of praise from analysts, podcasters, across the board. Just how I know some consider the best. She was the best female superstar of WWE last year, which is something to say when you are opposite of Rhea. But yeah, no, I mean, if you don't get that, if you don't have her with coming out with the injuring Rhea and doing all that. It's like, it's that just jump started that feud so well there. And it's interesting you bring I remember the Riot Squad a little bit, but I kind of totally forgotten about that. She was a part of the Riot Squad there. That's actually very interesting to think about how she's come so far from that, and how the other two, the other two I don't think aren't even in WWE right now. I don't know if they're on the independent scene or not, but I don't think Sarah's in WWE, because I know she was paired with the Viking, or excuse me, War Raiders at some point.
Right.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no, I had to look up who was actually in the Riot Squad, because I totally forgot who was even in the Riot Squad at the time. But yeah, no, that's cool. And we'll definitely talk about Alexa Bliss a little bit later too. I think it's very, two very similar wrestlers there, and that aspect. So yeah, no, that's really cool about Liv. I think she's to me, she's you either like her or don't like her. And I wouldn't say hate her, but you're gonna cheer for her or you're gonna boo her. I don't think there's any in between. But it's fine. She plays the dastardly role, the manipulating role very, very well, I feel.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think Ruby Riot is in AEW right now, right?
Let's just look that up actually. Um,
Yeah, 'cause I yeah, because the other one, I forgot what her name used to be.
Sarah Logan.
Sarah Logan. Yeah, I think she's just an extra. Wasn't she in the past Women's Royal Rumble? She got eliminated like extremely quickly.
She might be, yeah. Ruby Riot is under Ruby Soho, in AEW. So yeah, you're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
honestly,
it's funny because Liv was actually like the weak link of that group. Like Ruby was the boss, Sarah Logan was like the powerhouse. Funny enough,
yeah,
because the way we see her now, she just is such a sideshow. And then Liv Morgan is one of the top girls right now. It's funny how that ended up playing out.
yeah. I mean, and that was 6 years ago. So I mean, I feel like we see these sharp risers, in wrestling, throughout it. But I mean, we definitely will see, those that stick with it, stick with it. So, I'm looking up Sarah Logan right now. Yeah, she was in the Rumble last year. Yep.
Oh, it was last year. I remember her getting eliminated extremely quickly.
Right,
Like she
because
was
of our truth. Yeah,
yeah.
the whole confusion, Valhalla, eliminated by Nia Jax. But from what I'm at least seeing on Wikipedia of all things, it says that she's still signed to WWE. Yeah, so maybe she might be there, just not a wrestler. Maybe she just helps at the Performance Center. But she's obviously still under contract, but we haven't seen her with the War Raiders for a while at least. So
I
unless
think
she's hurt.
because she's a mother. I think it's just the fact that she's a mother and that she's like it's. I'd imagine it's a mix between her as being a mom and be like, what can you really do with her? Like most, you throw them in with the Raiders, and it's like, do they need her?
Right.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe.
No, that's very true. I mean, it's part of the reason we didn't see Becky for a while. Motherhood takes that's a big precedent there. So but if that's the case too, that's cool to see her, is that she's at least still under contract, so they could pull her back up for a storyline if they need to, and she's willing to. Yeah. So go back to Liv. That is so funny. Like you said, yeah, she was kind of the weak link of those three, and now she's near the top or at the top of women's wrestling in WWE right now. Speaking of being at the top, Dominic Mysterio now has a title, and I don't know how much we really talk about this in our group chats that we have, but I'm still like flabbergasted by the whole Dominic just getting praise and cheers. He's still acting heelish, but some reason the fans are starting to come around on him more. And he's not bad in ring. He's getting better, I think, as he has more matches, more opportunities, as you would expect someone. And that's obviously why those people get more opportunities. They either showing creative. They're showing everybody something, like, hey, we're getting better. But do you think that because Dom's now kind of getting more cheers by the fans, that could affect the response to Liv?
Relatively, I think we will end up just seeing where both of them go in terms of like if Dominic continues his path up getting cheered, I think Liv will also get cheered as she's so attached to Dom. I do think the fans, I mean, including myself, so just going off of personal experience, is recognizing how good he is. Like a lot of people say, the best heels in the game right now, like MJF and all that. MJF to me is falling off, but Dominic, I think he deserves his flowers. Like talking about his in-ring work is great. Matter in fact, I think what happened was he was a little too good. That it was like if he was doing all these flashy moves, it's like how are you going to boo this man who just did that? Like it's one of those. I think he just had to slow it down, as Triple H would say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's a really, really good wrestler. And obviously, he's a Mysterio. He has to be. And I think he's got still a lot of potential for different stuff. I would like to see him as a face again. His problem with being a face last time is that his problem with a lot of faces that they don't really have much of a personality apart from just being a good guy, which is why a good heel turn to a face turn tends to be pretty effective because you see their character more as a heel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually have a good way I would implement both of those characters. I think we'll get to later. But I think it'll affect the response of Liv because they are so close together. And Liv is also in the same boat as him. Incredible heel.
Mm-hmm.
Great matches and all that. I think they are pretty neck and neck right now, pretty 1-to-1 with how they are, with how attached they are. So I think it'll affect Liv, yeah. And I think whatever Liv does will affect Dominic too.
Gotcha.
As it has.
Yeah. I mean, do you think you could see them kind of if they want to keep Liv more in that heel role? Do you think we could just eventually just see them part ways? Maybe have the Judgment Day split that way instead of it being like Finn Balor's fault, maybe.
It's a possibility. It's probably not the way I would do it, but it's a possibility. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, and I just can't help but think of back in summer of 22. We had a brief run of Balor and Styles and Liv kind of as a faction. So I kind of like. So I was listening with that the other day when we were kind of prepping for this, and I was like, I mean, you could almost go that way too. Of if you wanted to split that way, if Dominic kind of keeps on getting a better reception from the fans and stuff, and Liv doesn't. But yeah, I'm with you there. I feel like if they're gonna cheer for Dom, they're gonna support Liv too. I would think. I'm very curious. I'm very curious to see what happens. We haven't seen her on TV for 3-4 weeks now. Since Mania. So or a week after Mania. Maybe she was on I think one week after Mania. But we haven't seen her for a few weeks. So I mean, we know how fans can just change the drop of a dime when someone comes back, even if it's been a short period. I guess I'm afraid though it's like without having to really without doing a deep dive in the roster, I don't really feel like you have a lot of women heels in on Raw at the moment. Then if you were to start to put her more of like even a tweener, I feel like there's not a lot of heels on there. Becky, but she has a program with Lyra right now. Again, off the top of my head, just I didn't look that up too, but yeah, I don't know. It's that. I guess that's what I'm worried about too. It's like you're gonna run out of heel women on the heels on the women's roster if you don't keep Liv as a heel.
Right. I think that Liv herself is such a flexible wrestler with what she can do. It's like what you're mentioning her that she could be a tweener. She could do. She call me a Liv Morgan fan, Stan, but I think she just works whatever she does.
Yeah.
But I agree it's not really her issue as much as it is just the entire program, the entire picture. You know, the heel women.
Mm-hmm.
You would just have to turn them, I think, which would be probably good because most heel turns, you know, like I said earlier, will give those wrestlers more of a character, more of a chance to show themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that is the route to go.
Yeah, maybe it is. So obviously we still have the women's WWE titles on Liv and Raquel. They didn't relinquish the titles when Liv went on a hiatus, and honestly, I don't know if there would have been anybody to relinquish them too, the way some people have been released. Um, do you have any thoughts on the women's tag division right now? Because it's it's slim. It's slim pickings, it seems.
Yeah, it's what was the last real update we had the tag team division again? I'm trying to think.
I mean, we had that 6-pack, that SmackDown, where we got the number one contenders, and that's where we had Bailey and Lyra win. But I
Right.
mean, Kaden Carter, Katana Chance, I think I have the names correctly there. They released. Shayna's released. So I mean, the potential of factions. Let's see if I can finally find the that SmackDown. I just don't think there's a lot of teams right now. I think you'd have to. I think you'd have to like manufacture some teams again, like we've been doing. Bianca and Bianca, Naomi, Jade. They're kind of all doing their own thing right now too. So it's it's and I think even some NXT women were let go too of that were um, potential teams that we could have had. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
it's
it's I think you can kind of look at it in the bigger picture right now with how over bloated I feel like the product is getting in some areas. Not saying the women don't deserve a tag team or they don't deserve recognition, same as the males, as much as I'm saying there's just not as much of them. So it's
mhm,
like you kind of have to look at it more um, systematically, if you want to use that word anyway. The fact that it's like, what can you do with it? I have an idea for what could make it the division exciting, which, like I said, I could get to later. But apart from one storyline, it's like, okay, then what? Like, what
right.
are we gonna do? There's only so many hours of programming they could do, and so many wrestlers out there that we could throw. It's I don't really have much of a thought on the women's tag team division current. Like I asked you, I'm like, what even? I forgot what the last thing really was between the tag team division. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that's what happened.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and like half of those women that were in that gauntlet match. I think I said 6-pack, but I think gauntlet match. It was 5 or 6 teams. And the last minute pairing of Bailey and Lyra was the team that won it, and some of those, I think at least 3, if not more, of those women are gone. I know Piper and Chelsea and Alba Fire, they're all a team. Secret Hervis right now, but I mean, even that Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, they were a good tag team. They held the championship for a while there last year, I believe. Carter and Chance, they were in that, and they're no longer with, and that's not a it's, to me, it's kind of like those releases. You're eventually gonna have to release people, or let their, or not renew their contracts. I kind of almost feel like that should really be the phrase they're using. It's not like they were released. It's just that most of the time those people are just like, hey, we're not renewing your contract. So it's like, hey, finish your contract, but we're not going to use you anymore, and we're not going to renew you. So I feel like that's what happened to a lot of these people, and the women's tag division is going to suffer as a whole because it was already slim as it was, and a few NXT women aren't around anymore that could have given you more potential for tag. But yeah, no. What would you do? What is your idea for the women's tag titles with that picture right now?
Inherently at the moment, I don't really care much who are the champions. I'm more so like with the questions we will get to, I will mention that. But when it comes to where we currently are, it could kind of just float by. I think the biggest thing we should kind of focus on is obviously establishing, these new teams and figuring out how we're going to program them.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the new age of social media and all that, and with the tag, women's tag division being as flimsy as it is, maybe a way to establish it, get more people talking about it is if these tag teams start being more active on social media, posting skits, doing all that to get them going. Kind of very similar to DIY back in the day, with like Bobby Roode Glorious bombs and all that. Establishing teams like that through the age of social media, skits, funny stuff that you could do. But the actual belts, it's like, Liv being gone right now. What can you do? Throw it on Bailey, it's like cool, but where next, So I don't know. Let's see what happens tomorrow, and I might have a different answer.
Yeah, there we go. Well, and any other storylines that you would be in the hopes for Liv Morgan down the road? Whether it's just a month or two down the road, or gearing up for WrestleMania season next year. Any kind of storylines you'd like to see Liv a part of?
Well, going into the second part, Wyatt Sicks, and I'll get to that. And another one, who would be a fun one to go with? Like, are we talking solo? Are we talking both? Like,
either. Honestly, I feel like her and Raquel will always kind of be a team for a while. Maybe even if they're not just like wrestling as a team, I feel like Raquel will always kind of be there as her muscle.
Right.
Kind of like Solo and the Tongas and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. It's I'm kind of wondering if like you could use her to for some NXT people. We're obviously we just got Julia signed to the SmackDown roster. I gotta imagine Roxanne's up sooner than later. They've both been wrestling in the main roster. So I gotta imagine. Yeah, I think it could.
Fun. Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, in the temporary, I don't even know how I'd go with it in terms of like if they're gonna get. I guess I'd say throw the belt, the tag team belts, because where I'm gonna get to with the tag team storyline with Liv, and maybe Liv can propel other newer female stars and tag teams. They don't have to lose to them, but like just propelling them, giving them TV time to show off their talents.
Yep.
But currently, yeah, I just want to see her back, man. I just want to see her back.
Yeah.
I think that, funny enough, she's got kind of in a position where it seems like the entire tag division is kind of crumbling because she's not there. One person. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's funny. And knowing that character, at least, I'm sure she'll use that to her advantage. I was actually thinking too, Roxanne could be a good person. We were talking about earlier with, if Liv is kind of put into that face role or that even tweener role, like that's a good first opponent to kind of be like, okay, do the fans want her as a face or not? Against Roxanne. I think that could be interesting just to see how she performs against someone like that, because just to see, hey, do we want to pull the trigger on that or not? But yeah. Speaking of women wrestlers and somebody already mentioned, Alexa Bliss is officially back. She's been back for 2 weeks now on SmackDown. Seen a little bit of her brief interactions with her and Charlotte. Very interesting there. But in tag teams, she teamed up with Zelina to face the Secret Hervis. Such a weird name, but hey, whatever works. Chelsea and team. What are your feelings for seeing Alexa Bliss back, since she's kind of one of your more favorite wrestlers too there?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny with Alexa being back. She's been gone for so long, and it's like I feel like we're kind of in a position where we moved on from her. She could bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, but like Alexa Bliss back in like 2017 around that area, 2016, she was like one of the biggest, champion, one of the biggest stars, champion walking into Mania 33 and 34. She was that position right before the whole Ronda takeover. She was like the top girl in a lot of ways. And then obviously we had her with the storyline with The Fiend and Firefly Funhouse. And then after all these years, she's just kind of plopped into things. I would like to see where the Charlotte thing goes. I hope it doesn't really last long. In my opinion, what I would do with her is I would put her into a high profile, storyline. Maybe it is of Charlotte, nothing too long. Maybe like a SummerSlam, type of, build up to it, but a high profile match for her. But then she loses. I'd have her lose, and I would have rumblings in the background with the Wyatt Sicks because she's so attached to Bray as a character, the doll and all that. I'm going to kind of go through the questions here with this one question, with what I would do with the Wyatt Sicks and her, is that I would like to see the Wyatt Sicks convert her. But, big but, she's nothing like what she was with Bray. We're going to get rid of the doll. That's going. That's gone. And I would actually have her be more of like similar to Nikki Cross, where she's not so much of a character anymore as she's like her soul was taken out of her. She's like a puppet, right? Because that's what the Wyatt Sicks has pretty much done. Like that's what Uncle Howdy and all that is pretty much like these puppets to him, right? With that, you have now Nikki and Alexa, which you could also play because they have a history together, into her downfall. And now you have another women's tag team.
Yes, you do.
Which makes this all kind of great because it gives Alexa something to do, gives the Wyatt Sicks something to do, and it gives another, tag team out there. But with the Wyatt Sicks, I'm telling you, from here on out, we got to make this work, because if it doesn't work, then it's done. It's like they debuted one of the biggest debuts of all time for me. Like so cinematic, so cool. Then it was just like really cool promos with Bo talking to Uncle Howdy, and very raw promos between the two. Uncle Howdy talking about exploiting the death of his brother and all that. Very raw. Very similar to, I feel like, how Karrion Kross is nowadays. Very manipulative. Which is, I'm happy for Karrion that he's doing what he's doing, but that role, I feel like it's way better for the Wyatt Sicks because of aesthetics.
Yeah.
And because Howdy is that type of character. So was Bray. Bray was a character who just knocked wrestlers down. Like, he gone to their head. It was mental warfare. That's what I would like to see, what would happen to Alexa, where you slowly see her lose the, the cocky, arrogant, glamorous Alexa Bliss, and you see her literally become like a stone face, like she's just gone, dead, and it's just like a puppet to her, to Uncle Howdy, and the storylines I would go with that I did mention to you earlier of how I would take it, with Liv in the tag team division, is that there's two tag teams that works really well for Liv and Chelsea. Two characters who are fundamental victims in a horror movie. Whiny, arrogant,
Yep.
all of that. They're two victims. And Liv obviously already has history of being in that role with Chucky. Even though it was very side, it was more of a comedic thing than the horror, but she's familiar with it. She's a horror fan. She gets it. And Chelsea, I believe, gets it too. Because I think, funny enough, this is actually a real life story of mine. I went to Halloween Horror Nights one year, and I think Chelsea was there, but I saw Zack Ryder of Cody Rhodes right next to me in line.
No way.
So yeah, so with obviously Ryder and Chelsea, she's gotta be a fan of the horror genre to do that event, and with everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, the fundamentals of the character, I think you could have fun with that for a while. And if you want to extend the women's side, the Nikki Cross side of the Wyatt Sicks, you could hypothetically do a face turn for Alexa down the road where she pulls a Daniel Bryan, and just rips the mask off and she's back. And then you have this big face turn where she could potentially just win the title from there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is her way back up because it's like, what can you really possibly do with her right now? Because if you just throw her into a title picture, it's gonna feel shoehorned. It's gonna be like, oh yeah, Alexa, okay, sure.
Right.
But if you actually have build the fact that she has been gone for so long, build the fact that she's almost, and I'm saying this the way that I love Alexa, I'm talking more storyline, that she's almost like a has-been because she was that person and now she's just forgotten. Like she has no injuries past Rumble. She wasn't in Mania.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the biggest female stars in history. Wasn't even in Mania.
No.
Build on that. Maybe you have things where maybe Uncle Howdy in the Y6 kidnaps her, and maybe it's one of those that you see promos that Uncle Howdy's talking to her, very similar to how he did with Bo, and is breaking her down, being like, "This is where you were." Maybe you continue the storyline of how she turned on Bray at WrestleMania 35. Was that the Randy match, or was it 36?
Yeah, I think it was one of the. I don't remember off the top of my head.
35 was COVID, I think. Wait, was it? No, I don't know where all these years blend into me. I completely forget. The one past COVID, where she ends up turning on him. Maybe you bring that up. And bring up the fact that she hasn't really been anything since, Bray's passing, that she's just been gone. Go deep, raw with it, like the same way he did to Bo. Like, rip the Band-Aid off and be brutal with it. Bring up uncomfortable subjects.
Mm-hmm.
That's what horror is all about, man.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you really have this total breakdown of this character where you see her a little more cocky in the beginning of it, and then slowly you see her face just drop. Which Alexa's a pretty good actor. I mean, when she was with Bray, before Bray left, and before the turn, she was pretty good. I liked her a lot, especially during COVID, where she was like, her and Bray were like holding each other's hand in the ring, and what was that one? What was that one faction that was during COVID that they surrounded both of them? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Boy. Right. Oh man, that's when I was just starting to kind of watch it back. I don't though. Not off the top of my head.
I don't. It was like they were like some sort of outcast. It was like some sort of nexus, but I forgot the exact. I think.
You're not talking about like Retribution or anything, are you? No.
I think that's it. Ali was, I think, the leader of
that. Yeah, Retribution. Yep, that would be it.
Was Retribution. Remember when they like surrounded him and he just stood there, and like they just stood there stone cold like that. Like that aesthetic, I think is so cool. They do that with her, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm talking a pretty good build-up in storylines that keeps the Wyatt Sicks on TV. Mm-hmm. Even if the Wyatt Sicks is just the women for now,
right?
It doesn't matter to me. They're on TV, and maybe you have that intimidating factor where you don't know what the other members of Wyatt Sicks do. They could just attack the women too. They're horror characters. They're broken. They're shattered people. So maybe it is like a women's tag match, and the other women are like, maybe the men are still intimidating them. Like we could all gang up on you. We're the Wyatt Sicks. What are you going to do to us? We're like 10 times your size.
Yeah.
You could do something with that. So with the storyline with Alexa turning, which will take a bit, TV time, with her being turned, and you have two storylines, one of Liv, one of Chelsea. And then if there's more that presents itself through time, good. And then you have her face turn. And then with that face turn, you shoot her up to the main event spot again. That's how I do Alexa Bliss. It's short booking, straight to the point. That's how I do it. And with the Wyatt Sicks, I wouldn't. They have a really bad habit of, after these big storylines, leaving them in the dust.
Yeah.
Not doing that. We're not going to do that. Maybe use the time that they're on TV and have something where the other members of Wyatt Sicks are doing something to keep them on TV because, well, they should be. They're one of the more fascinating, characters in professional wrestling right now. One of the most requested characters. People want to know why they're not on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Any of this. I think that kills the one stone of putting the Y6 on TV, the other stone of having Alexa Bliss do something that's not shoehorned, something that's built, something that has effect, and then 3, saving the tag team division for the women.
Yeah,
you essentially save that by doing this storyline. Boom.
Yeah, there you go. And like you said, you already have her and Liv, her versus Liv, and her versus Chelsea. You already have 2 sizable teams there. And as you're talking to us, like, it'd be fun, I think, and I think we might have talked about this offline one time, to where if you get the Wyatt Sicks all back together and Judgment Day stays as it is for a little while, you could almost have a Wyatt Sicks and Judgment Day feud going on as a whole. Because you technically have to get a 4th guy for Judgment Day, but maybe that's why Dominic's been begging for a 4th guy, because he knows what's coming.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't even thinking about the other members of Judgment Day. My mind's so big on Liv right now. I wasn't even thinking about that. But yeah, that totally Judgment Day. So instead of just being like the matches could, be Liv and and Bliss and Nikki and Raquel, but you also have like you said, the male side of it. And Judgment Day is already aesthetically a dark group. So you have like these 2 forces of relative evil of Judgment Day, not evil, I'm going to say horror of Judgment Day. Then you have like this straight horror evil, like Judgment Day, but way more mentally disturbed. And you have that entire storyline that you could keep going for a while because there's so much that you could do there with Liv, with the fact that it's a horror. Whereas Dominic, I have to mention, Dominic also, his character opens the door for that whiny victim in a horror movie.
Yes,
that type of character you see in Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's that character archetype.
Yep.
It's perfectly made for this huge clash that could have a huge payoff at a huge PLE.
Yeah.
And it literally would kill so many birds with one stone. So many problems.
Yeah.
And it propels the Wyatt Sicks to be that faction it should be, especially if WWE wants to explore them. Like, I don't know, if they were to eventually appear at a Halloween Horror Nights or do these, big events, because they do cover the horror genre, the way Bray Wyatt used to do, the way Undertaker used to for so many years. We don't have those horror characters anymore. It's the Wyatt Sicks. So use them because they're not common. And when they are, they have such a huge legacy. Like Bray left such a huge legacy behind. Taker, forget about it. It's Taker, right?
Right.
Probably the greatest of all time. Kane, all of that. So yeah, I think that's in a cap how I do it.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating there. I think that would be very compelling. You already have other teams already kind of built in right now. Going with the Chelsea thing, I mean, I feel like how much into horror is she? But I feel like she can play the over dramatic so well right now. She is very over dramatic. If you watch anything from her, yeah, it's I think that would be a fun play into the Wyatt Sicks and everything. And you have her Hervis to Secret Hervis to help defend her there. So it could be that could be a lot of fun. A lot of fun there. I did want to ask you about Bliss more a little bit too. She did just qualify for the Money in the Bank, but I feel like that could, like her and whatever storyline they do for Charlotte, again, short kind of like you're saying, I think could feed into that Wyatt Sicks so well. It's like, have her lose to Charlotte, have her kind of being that down, and then have the Wyatt Sicks kind of just drag her down to the very bottom, like you're saying. It's very raw, very emotional, very just to the point. And yeah, you wouldn't have to bring in any of the guys during that. And I mean, even if Bo's still hurt, like he should still be able to do like recorded segments and stuff like that, like they were doing before. So,
we could record stuff for for good old Bo Dallas over at Full Sail.
There we go. I'm sure you could. Oh man,
give him a paid vacation for send him over to Universal if he wants. Film some stuff. Last a month, he'll be back.
Yeah, no problem there. Everything's so perfectly lined up over there for you guys. That'd be great. Yeah, no, and I think they could. You could do a lot of things. I feel like they're. I don't want to use the term novelty act. I think they're definitely more than a novelty act, but it feels like they're being treated that way towards like it's all or nothing. It's like there are definitely ways you could use some of them, but not all of them. But yeah, I would definitely like to see them as a whole back. And again, and even with Judgment Day, if they were to go down that road in the next couple months, if you could, and Bo is still hurt or whatever, or is not able to wrestle, like Judgment Day only has 3 guys in it right now. You could still pull that off, and when Bo is ready, then you bring a 4th one into that fold for Judgment Day. The men from Wyatt Sicks are definitely much stronger than Dom and well, no, I guess you do have 4. I cannot count in my head who's in Judgment Day right now because I forgot JD's back. So yeah, you already have everybody. It's a matter if you want Carlito involved or not, I guess.
I mean, I have an idea for that 4th member. Maybe they look around and nobody wants to do it because nobody wants to go against the Wyatt Sicks, but then they somehow seem to convince R-Truth. and he has absolutely no clue he's getting himself into, and he just is like, I love you guys, this and that, and he gets inside the match and he's like, what? What's happening? Or what when the Wyatt Sicks walk in, he just looks over like who? What? Nah, I'm good. He walks out or something like that.
Oh man, that'd be great. Yeah, because I mean, I guess you do have 4 in Judgment Day currently, because I just, like I said, I totally blanked on JD being in it. But then you got Finn, Dom, and JD. Then I guess it's just a matter of, is Carlito really up to the task here?
I mean, Carlito could play that role too. Carlito also is, comedic. I remember his work with Braun Breaker was so good. Just the way he just would get murdered by him was funny as hell.
Yeah. But yeah, do you think Bliss and Money in the Bank, that could have? What do you feel like with that could feed into these storylines? Because I mean, she did the Money in the Bank, and she could become the only repeat winner of Money in the Bank if I have that correctly. But I don't see her winning at the moment, I guess.
I mean, the writing room could be different. Obviously, they could. Whether it's better or worse, I would say that you could make it work. If I was the head writer and I was doing it all myself, I can make this work. But I don't know. I don't know where they're gonna go for Alexa Bliss. Like I said, my problem with it is that I don't care for wrestlers who return then get shoehorned into big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely is it okay, sure. For Cody had a build up to it. He wasn't just immediately oh yeah, I'm back, I'm champion already. It's there was, his feud of Rollins, he lost Reigns and then he went through Brock, and it was this whole big build before that happened.
Yep.
Alexa, and quite frankly, the women's division right now doesn't really have that star power for me to be okay. And even then, what if he was authentic than the way Cody did? So the way I said that how I do it would be the most authentic way you can make that storyline work with her. But I don't know. I think it could build it something. The writing in WWE has gone better for the most part. But regardless, I think they're going to do something with Alexa. I just don't know exactly what it's going to be. I just hope that it isn't one of those Charlotte Flair moments where it's just her back in the big picture immediately with, or Becky. Becky the same way for me. I don't like the way Becky has been handling, with her on and off cameos and whatever she does nowadays, because it's just okay, yeah, she's big, big time Becky, I guess. She just, okay, sure, cool,
yeah.
Great. I feel you're now robbing other people because because you're Becky Lynch. It's like I didn't think that she needed to win that match at Mania, like at all. That there was, yeah. I don't think she should have even been in it. Like, it just wasn't even needed to me.
Yeah, I guess they had to bring her back somehow. Yeah, no, I'm still, obviously it was done to turn her heel so they could win it, drop it the next night, and then she could turn heel on Lyra. But I feel like you could have turned her heel by just attacking anyone or Bailey or whatever or something like that. It's you could have done it a few different ways, but yeah, what do we know? I guess, but yeah, it's
she ended up doing Liv dirty, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, at least they got it back the next night though. So
yeah, that's true, but it's like at Mania, man, get that big Mania win, hold the belt up high. I think she deserved it.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So, well, any other thoughts on Bliss or Liv or the Wyatt Sicks or any of this combined? Because I mean, yeah, you've definitely combined this all. I think it'd be awesome to see kind of what you're saying play out. I think it'd be really good, really compelling.
Yeah, man. I looked at LinkedIn and see that there's one opening for writing position in WWE right now. I think I'm gonna go. Hopefully, around the time I graduate, I'm gonna throw my name in the hat for something like that. But
yeah,
I'd say my big thing is I want to see the Wyatt Sicks be used. Like that's the core of my entire booking of what I do. Is like, yeah, I want to see Alexa and all that, but the fact of the matter is, Alexa Bliss, even if she were to straight up retire right now, she still had one hell of a career. She's still gonna be a legend, Hall of Famer, all of that. The Wyatt Sicks, all members deserve and need to have more. Like they need that spot more than anyone else I could think of right now for WWE. So in any capacity, how they bring them back with it being quality, because it's like the whole Karrion Kross thing. It's like, yeah, I thought it was decent, but like obviously after we didn't get much, and it's kind of like what you mentioned before. I get that Bo is injured, and if it's one of those where he just needs a rest and we need to just work with that, cool, we could work with that. But at the same time, I'd almost say we could film promos. The cool thing with the Wyatt Sicks is that they are a horror faction and they don't need to be in the ring. Like, it's a bit challenging to do horror well in wrestling. Like, Undertaker, he's a legend of the game. I'm not trying to knock him by any means. But Undertaker's style of horror is extremely 80s or 90s. He was a dead man that was walking and then turned into a biker. And then towards the end, he wasn't scary anymore. He was just a legend. Like we just viewed Undertaker during the 2010s as a legend, 2000s as a legend. Not so much scary. Like he was more cool. Yeah. Bray Wyatt, in my opinion, did wrestling the best in history with the Firefly Funhouse, with the promos, some of the stuff was a little goofy, I didn't care much for the Randy Orton match at Mania 33, with the bugs on the ring. That seemed like a Vince idea. If that was a Bray Wyatt idea, I'd be shocked because it looked stupid. It was stupid. Yep. But Bray seems to have, this is coming from one of the biggest Bray Wyatt fans. Like a lot of his matches, they had gimmicks that were not needed. Like I don't know why we needed to have that red light every time. Like it was a bit overdone for a while. But some other matches, like him versus Daniel Bryan, Rumble, that Strat match was perfect. Loved that match. For what it was worth, I liked the Hell in a Cell match of Rollins until the finish. For what it was worth,
right.
Apart from the fact that I just don't care for the lighting. Like, I get it. He's a horror character. We don't need to make it red. Like it's professional wrestling. Like let's not act like we're trying to be in Freddy Krueger's nightmares right now. Like let's chill, relax for a bit, But with the Wyatt Sicks, where I'm getting to before I rambled off, is that they could do a lot of promo work. And I think regardless of Bo being cleared or not, they should do promo work before they should probably go back, unless they were to take my route and wait for Alexa Bliss to do her work, and then they go in after Alexa Bliss, following her coattails. But if that's not the route they take, which I don't know if it will be, then I don't know how I'd approach the Wyatt Sicks right now. If that's not the route, they would just have to kind of work their way back in. I'd say through very similar, like I said, how Bray Wyatt did it with Funhouse when he debuted with the Funhouse. He didn't actually appear on TV for like many weeks. It wasn't until was it Finn? Yeah, I think it was Finn that when he attacked Finn was the first time the Fiend made his appearance after all those Funhouse episodes. So I think that's how you do the Wyatt Sicks right now. Just slowly want to ease them back in. I'm just really passionate about that group, obviously, because I'm such a huge Bray Wyatt fan, and I want them to make Bray proud. And where it currently stands, I can't say that they are, because they're not doing anything. And I get that Bo was injured, but before, it was like they got to do more. So with time, I hope that's the case, and I hope whatever they got is going to be good, because the other side of the horror in wrestling is that it could just as easily be really bad. Bray Wyatt, being one of my favorites, like I mentioned earlier, had some really bad moments. Bray was just very corny. Undertaker, another legend. So he had some really bad horror moments where it was like, Kane, another one. Like, sometimes it's not even their fault. Like, it's a bit funny, but remember the time where he couldn't get the pyro to go off and he kept like waving his hands, like stuff like that. It's like, okay, cool. And they end up just giving up on Kane being horror. He was just like big dude in a mask who was mad all the time. Like, they end up just kind of being done with it. But yeah, it could just as easily be bad. So I hope that Bo, and I think he does. I don't want to, because the promo work he did before was phenomenal. Bray Wyatt here, good. He's got to figure out how to do this, and I think he definitely could. I think they need not even just Bo, but the writing staff for WWE, Hunter, Bo need to figure out how to really hit this home, because the Wyatt Sicks isn't a regular faction. They're not Judgment Day. They're not. I can't think of a faction right now. Mine's going blank, but they're not those people. They're so unique, and because they're so unique, they could be something huge.
Right.
You just got to use them. You just got to use them.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, I think we get tired of hearing, well, we're just waiting for the right storyline. Well, find one. You have a writer's room for a reason, and you just came up with a couple. And I guess I see that, because if you do want, I don't know if there's really anybody that you could have them target. I mean, they were kind of targeting The Miz, and then they went away from that, so they could kind of target him again, because with him and Mello, they could, but I guess he was kind of finding the right target. But again, you can do promos with them. Someone I just really thought of too. I'd be curious to see if they could do any kind of involvement with Aleister Black now that he's back. This kind of the aura that he kind of presents. You could see them. That could be interesting too, I think.
My thing of Aleister Black and the Wyatt Sicks is that I actually would like to see Aleister Black prevail and win in that feud, because Aleister Black to me is like this gothic hero. He's like the knight in shining armor to me aesthetically to the Wyatt Sicks, because while he is dark as a character, like gothic and all that, he also is very cold. He's like, very brutal. And he seems like that one character that I would be like, yeah, I'm cool with the Wyatt Sicks losing a feud with him, because he does seem like they're kryptonite, like that type of person. The fact that he could use darkness for good or for light is like classic literature. It's classic storytelling. Yeah. But I wouldn't use it anytime soon. Like, maybe if you want to put Aleister Black in the big title picture, maybe if they go the route I'm saying of Wyatt Sicks and they eventually find their way to the big title picture, maybe that's the big match at a Mania in the future. Maybe we get a horror build where the Wyatt Sicks, you see them try to knock Aleister Black, and maybe a few times they crack him, but he's like their kryptonite. Maybe that's where they start to struggle, and you see them like, you see Uncle Howdy like, what the hell? Why is this not working? This worked on The Miz, this worked on all these other people. Why not him? Because he is like their kryptonite. I think that's the way I'd probably go
cool.
that story.
That'd be cool.
It's more aesthetics, and like I said, it's like classic Shakespeare literature right there.
yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Yeah, no, I think you have a lot of very cool ideas here, a lot of interesting storylines to, maybe we just need to get the right person to hear them. Maybe they'll use them.
Yeah, no, Hunter, watch this, bro. I'm gonna send you a link.
Yes, please do. Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you joining here. We'll be looking forward to seeing kind of what happens with all three of these people. Maybe eventually we get them all on the same brand, but maybe not. That remains to be seen. But the way people cross brands, and with the women's tag titles, you don't have to have that brand crossing, or you don't have to worry about that. Who's on which brand, since they cross all the brands. I feel like there would be, I'm looking forward to it now. I kind of hope a lot of this stuff comes true.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe, like I said, maybe one of the day my writing talents would throw me into WWE, and that happens. You'll know that will happen because you'll see the Wyatt Sicks on TV. That's how you know I'm in that room.
Oh, finally! Oh man, he must have gotten his job up there.
Yeah. Like, yeah, no, I'm there.
Well, thanks, Chris. Again, thanks for joining me. We are going to try to get us all four of us together like we did for our mini predictions, getting you back on, Tyler and Joe, all of us four together to do some Money in the Bank predictions when that gets closer. That's only a few weeks away already. We got Saturday night's main event coming up right after this is being released, so the same weekend. A lot of PLEs coming up, a lot of opportunities. So I think even more to your point with a lot of these people, a lot of these storylines, it's like there's so many premier events going on that you're going to need storylines. And, we've obviously mentioned a few people here that, could use storylines. So, hopefully some of that kind of coincide at some point. But again, thanks for joining. Hopefully get all four of us together, Money in the Bank predictions. But thank everybody for watching. Give a like, subscribe, let us know what you think for Chris's thoughts here on Liv, Alexa Bliss, Wyatt Sicks especially. When can we see them again? I think that's a big question that everybody's wondering right now. When do we see the Wyatt Sicks once again on screen? So, but thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next time.
See ya.